Public transport is a shared passenger transport service which is available for use by the general public, as distinct from modes such as taxicab, carpooling, or hired buses, which are not shared by strangers without private arrangement. Public transport modes include city buses, trolleybuses, trams and passenger trains, rapid transit and ferries. Public transport between cities is dominated by airlines, coaches, and intercity rail. High-speed rail networks are being developed in many parts of the world. Most public transport runs to a scheduled timetable, with the most frequent services running to a headway. Share taxis offer on-demand services in many parts of the world, and some services will wait until the vehicle is full before it starts. Paratransit is sometimes used in areas of low demand and for people who need a door-to-door service. There are distinct differences in urban public transit between Asia, North America, and Europe. In Asia, mass transit operations are predominantly run by profit-driven, privately owned and publicly traded mass transit and real estate conglomerates. In North America, mass transit operations are predominantly run by municipal transit authorities. In Europe, mass transit operations are predominantly run by both state-owned and private companies. Public transport services can be profit-driven by use of pay-by-the-distance fares are funded by government subsidies, in which flat-rate fares are charged to each passenger. Services can be fully profitable through high ridership numbers and high fare box recovery ratios, or can be regulated and possibly subsidized from a local and national tax revenue. Fully subsidized, zero-fare services operate in some towns and cities. For historical and economic reasons, there are differences internationally regarding use and extent of public transport. While countries in the Old World tend to have extensive and frequent systems serving their old and dense cities, many cities of the New World have more sprawl and much less comprehensive public transport. The International Association of Public Transport is the international network for public transport authorities and operators, policy decision-makers, scientific institutes and the public transport supply and service industry. It has 3,400 members from 92 countries. History. Conveyances designed for public hire are as old as the first ferries, and the earliest public transport was water transport. On land, people walked to road and animal. Ferries appear in Greek mythology. Corpses in ancient Greece were buried with a coin underneath the tongue to pay the ferryman care and to take them to Hades. Some historical forms of public transport include the stagecoach, traveling a fixed route from coaching in to coaching in, and the horse-drawn boat carrying paying passengers, which was a feature of European canals from the 17th century origins, served primarily for shipping grain. The omnibus, the first organized public transit system within a city, appears to have originated in Paris, France, in 1662. Although the service in question failed a few months after its founder, Blaise Pascal, died in August 1662, omnibuses are next known to have appeared in Nantes, France, in 1826. The omnibus was introduced to London in July 1829. The first passenger horse-drawn railway opened in 1806. It ran between Swansea and Mumbles in southwest Wales in the United Kingdom. In 1825, George Stephenson built the locomotion for the Stockton and Darlington Railway in northeast England, the first public steam railway in the world. Types: airline. An airline provides scheduled service with aircraft between airports. Air travel has high up to very high speeds, but incurs large waiting times prior and after travel, and is therefore often only feasible over longer distances or in areas where lack of ground infrastructure makes other modes of transport impossible. Bush airlines work more similar to bus stops. An aircraft waits for passengers and takes off when the aircraft is full of luggage. Bus and coach bus services use buses on conventional roads to carry numerous passengers on shorter journeys. Buses operate with low capacity and can operate on conventional roads, with relatively inexpensive bus stops to serve passengers. Therefore, buses are commonly used in smaller cities, towns, and rural areas, as well as for shuttle services supplementing other means of transit in large cities. Bus rapid transit is an ambiguous term used for buses operating on dedicated right-of-way, much like a light rail. Trolleybuses are electric buses that employ overhead wires to get power for traction. Online electric vehicles are buses that run on a conventional battery, but are recharged frequently at certain points via underground wires. Coach services use coaches for suburb to CBD or longer distance transportation. The vehicles are normally equipped with more comfortable seating, a separate luggage compartment, video and possibly also a toilet. They have higher standards than city buses but a limited stopping pattern. Train passenger rail transport is the conveyance of passengers by means of wheeled vehicles specially designed to run on railways. Trains allow high capacity on short or long distance but require track, signaling, infrastructure and stations to be built and maintained. Urban rail transit consists of trams, light rail, rapid transit, people movers, commuter rail, monorail, suspension railways and funiculars. Commuter, intercity, and high-speed rail. Commuter rail is part of an urban area's public transport. It provides faster services to outer suburbs and neighboring towns and villages. Trains stop at stations that are located to serve a smaller suburban or town center. The stations are often combined with shuttle bus or park-and-ride systems. Frequency may be up to several times per hour, and commuter rail systems may either be part of the national railway or operated by local transit agencies. Intercity rail is long-haul passenger services that connect multiple urban areas. They have few stops, and aim at high average speeds, typically only making one of a few stops per city. These services may also be international. High-speed rail is passenger trains operating significantly faster than conventional rail, typically defined as at least 200 km per hour. The most predominant systems have been built in Europe and Japan, and compared with air travel, offer long-distance rail journeys as quick as air services, have lower prices to compete more effectively and use electricity instead of combustion. Tram and light rail. Trams are rail-borne vehicles that run in city streets or dedicated tracks. They have higher capacity than buses but must follow dedicated infrastructure with rails and wires either above or below the track, limiting the flexibility. Light rail is a modern development of the tram, with dedicated right-of-way not shared with other traffic, step-free access and increased speed. Light rail lines are, thus, essentially modernized interurbans. Rapid transit. A rapid transit railway system operates in an urban area with high capacity and frequency, and great separation from other traffic. Systems are able to transport larger amounts of people quickly over short distances with little land use. Variations of rapid transit include people movers, small-scale light metro and the commuter rail hybrid S-Bahn. More than 160 cities have rapid transit systems, totaling more than 8,000 kilometers of track and 7,000 stations. 25 cities have systems under construction. Personal rapid transit. Personal rapid transit is an automated cab service that runs on rails or a guideway. This is an uncommon mode of transportation due to the complexity of automation. A fully implemented system might provide most of the convenience of individual automobiles with the efficiency of public transit. A crucial innovation is that the automated vehicles carry just a few passengers, turn off the guideway to pick up passengers, and drop them off to the location of their choice. Conventional transit simulations show that PRT might attract many auto users in problematic medium-density urban areas. A number of experimental systems are in progress. One might compare personal rapid transit to the more labor-intensive taxi paratransit modes of transportation, or to the elevators common in many publicly accessible areas. Cable-propelled transit. Cable-propelled transit is a transit technology that moves people in motorless, engine-less vehicles that are propelled by a steel cable. There are two subgroups of CPT, gondola lifts and cable cars. Gondola lifts are supported and propelled from above by cables, whereas cable cars are supported and propelled from below by cables. While historically associated with usage in ski resorts, gondola lifts are now finding increased consumption and utilization in many urban areas, built specifically for the purposes of mass transit. Many, if not all, of these systems are implemented and fully integrated within existing public transportation networks. Examples include Metrosable, Portland Aerial Tram, Roosevelt Island Tramway in New York City, and London's Emirates Airline. Ferry. A ferry is a boat or ship used to carry passengers, and sometimes the vehicles, across a body of water. A foot passenger ferry with many stops is sometimes called a water bus. Ferries form a part of the public transport systems of many waterside cities and islands, allowing direct transit between points at a capital cost much lower than bridges or tunnels, though at a lower speed. Ship connections of much larger distances may also be called ferry services. Auto-rickshaws. Auto-rickshaws carry people and goods in many developing countries. Also known as a three-wheeler, samosa, tempo, tuk-tuk, trishaw, auto-rickshaw, auto-rick, bajaj, rick, tricycle, moto-taxi, baby taxi, lapper in popular parlance. They are a motorized version of the traditional pulled rickshaw or cycle rickshaw. They are an essential form of urban transport, both as vehicles for hire and for private use in many developing countries, and a form of novelty transport in many Eastern countries. Operation. Infrastructure. All public transport runs on infrastructure, either on roads, rail, airways, or seaways. The infrastructure can be shared with other modes, freight and private transport, or it can be dedicated to public transport. The latter is especially valuable in cases where there are capacity problems for private transport. Investments in infrastructure are expensive and make up a substantial part of the total costs in systems that are new or expanding. Once built, the infrastructure will require operating and maintenance costs, adding to the total cost of public transport. Sometimes governments subsidize infrastructure by providing it free of charge, just as is common with roads for automobiles. Interchanges. Interchanges are locations where passengers can switch from one public transport route to another. This may be between vehicles of the same mode, or e.g., between bus and train. It can be between local and intercity transport. Timetables. Timetables are provided by the transport operator to allow users to plan their journeys. They are often supplemented by maps and fare schemes to help travelers coordinate their travel. Online public transport route planners help make planning easier. Mobile apps are available for multiple transit systems that provide timetables and other service information and, in some cases, allow ticket purchase. some allowing to plan your journey, with time fares zones e.g. Services are often arranged to operate at regular intervals throughout the day or part of the day. Often, more frequent services or even extra routes are operated during the morning and evening rush hours. Coordination between services at interchange points is important to reduce the total travel time for passengers. This can be done by coordinating shuttle services with main routes, or by creating a fixed time when all bus and rail routes meet at a station and exchange passengers. There is often a potential conflict between this objective and optimizing the utilization of vehicles and drivers. Financing. The main sources of financing are ticket revenue, government subsidies and advertising. The percentage of revenue from passenger charges is known as the fare box recovery ratio. A limited amount of income may come from land development and rental income from stores and vendors, parking fees, and leasing tunnels and rights of way to carry fiber optic communication lines. Fare and ticketing. Most, but not all, public transport requires the purchase of a ticket to generate revenue for the operators. Tickets may be bought either in advance or at the time of the journey, or the carrier may allow both methods. Passengers may be issued with a paper ticket, a metal or plastic token, or a magnetic or electronic card. Sometimes a ticket has to be validated, e.g., a paper ticket has to be stamped, or an electronic ticket has to be checked in. Tickets may be valid for a single trip, or valid within a certain area for a period of time. The fare is based on the travel class, either depending on the travel distance, or based on zone pricing. The tickets may have to be shown or checked automatically at the station platform when boarding, or during the ride by a conductor. Operators may choose to control all riders, allowing sale of the ticket at the time of ride. Alternatively, a proof of payment system allows riders to enter the vehicles without showing the ticket, but riders may or may not be controlled by a ticket controller if the rider fails to show proof of payment. The operator may fine the rider at the magnitude of the fare. Multi-use tickets allow travel more than once. In addition to return tickets, this includes period cards allowing travel within a certain area, or during a given number of days that can be chosen within a longer period of time. Passes aimed at tourists, allowing free or discounted entry at many tourist attractions. Typically include zero-fare public transport within the city. Period tickets may be for a particular route, or for a whole network. A free travel pass allowing free and unlimited travel within a system is sometimes granted to particular social sectors, for example students, elderly, children, employees and the physically or mentally disabled. Zero-fare public transport services are funded in full by means other than collecting a fare from passengers, normally through heavy subsidy or commercial sponsorship by businesses. Several mid-size European cities and many smaller towns around the world have converted their entire bus networks to zero fare. The only European capital with free public transport is Tallinn. Local zero-fare shuttles or inner-city loops are far more common than city-wide systems. There are also zero-fare airport circulators and university transportation systems. Revenue, profit and subsidies. Governments frequently opt to subsidize public transport for social, environmental or economic reasons. Common motivations include the desire to provide transport to people who are unable to use an automobile, and to reduce congestion, land use and automobile emissions. Other motives may include promoting business and economic growth, or urban renewal in formerly deprived areas of the city. Public transit systems rarely operate without government support. Some systems are owned and operated by a government agency. Other transportation services may be commercial, but receive special benefits from the government compared to a normal company. Subsidies may take the form of direct payments for financially unprofitable services, but support may also include indirect subsidies. For example, the government may allow free or reduced-cost use of state-owned infrastructure such as railways and roads, to stimulate public transport's economic competitiveness over private transport that normally also has free infrastructure. Other subsidies include tax advantages, bailouts if companies that are likely to collapse, and reduction of competition through licensing schemes. Private transport is normally subsidized indirectly through free roads and infrastructure, as well as incentives to build car factories and, on occasion, directly via bailouts of automakers. Land development schemes may be initialized, where operators are given the rights to use lands near stations, depots, or tracks for property development. For instance, in Hong Kong, MTR Corporation Limited and KCR Corporation generate additional profits from land development to partially cover the cost of the construction of the urban rail system. Some supporters of mass transit believe that use of taxpayer capital to fund mass transit will ultimately save taxpayer money in other ways, and therefore, state-funded mass transit is a benefit to the taxpayer. Some research has supported this position, but the measurement of benefits and costs is a complex and controversial issue. A lack of mass transit results in more traffic, pollution, and road construction to accommodate more vehicles, all costly to taxpayers. Providing mass transit will therefore alleviate these costs. Safety and security. In the United States, expansion of public transportation systems is often opposed by critics who see them as vehicles for violent criminals and homeless persons to expand into new areas. According to the Transportation Research Board, Ireland crime is perceived as pandemic. Personal security affects many people's decisions to use public transportation. Despite the occasional highly publicized incident, the vast majority of modern public transport systems are well designed and patrolled and generally have low crime rates. Many systems are monitored by CCTV, mirrors, or patrol. Nevertheless, some systems attract vagrants who use the stations or trains as sleeping shelters, though most operators have practices that discourage this. Though public transit accidents attract far more publicity than car wrecks, public transport has much lower accident rates. Annually, public transit prevents 200,000 deaths, injuries, and accidents had equivalent trips been made by car. The National Safety Council estimates riding the bus is over 170 times safer than private car.